Okay, I wanted to show you guys and gals something that I've started doing. You know, the little pins, after you get them, you know, ready to put in there, I'm just basically putting them in there. This is probably the most tedious part of doing these things, if you ask me, is these little pins, because they're so small and they're not easy to solder in because the little pads are tiny. So I've tried a couple different techniques on and I've come across something I think works pretty good. Also, as far as the tip on my soldering iron, it's a 1.2 millimeter tip that I'm using because these pads are so small. But I'm just going to put about 2 rows worth of stuff. I already got some of these already on here because I was trying different techniques. Because like I said, this is probably the most tedious part of doing this. But I will say this, you want to put basically at the minimum to start off with, you want to put 1 on each corner and maybe 1 or 2 on the sides to make this work pretty good. So I've got, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 right here that are loose. Basically take your little template that you were using, or a piece of cardboard or whatever. This probably isn't the best piece of cardboard because it's all the way through, but basically what I'm doing is I'm just putting it over and then flipping it around, and now I can go ahead and solder those that I just put in. And I will say this, they're not going to be straight, so you're going to have to straighten them once you get those soldered in. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. Let me solder these up real quick. I have a hard time seeing them, so I don't want to accidentally solder a hole shut, just, you know. So I think that's all that I did. So I'm gonna turn it back over. But you can go ahead and do all of them that way. You can kind of see it's like that one's really crooked, and they're all kind of crooked, and they're not 100% seated. I did miss one. That's okay. Yeah, I pretty much got all the other ones. So what I've been doing, I just take a little scrap wire right there, and then what I'm doing is just using that piece of scrap wire, and I'm just putting it inside the little hole as such, and then I'm hitting that pad again and letting it melt and flow that solder, and then let it seat, let it cool, and now it's straight. Like I said, it's it's pretty tedious, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of ways of doing this, and you could, you know, attach these to the end of the little LED panels, but I found that not to be so great. This seems to be the fastest way that I found to do it. That one's not wanting to flow for some reason, so I'm going to put a little bit of flux, or a little bit of solder right there. Pick that thing up. Now it sits, let it cool, and I can pull it out, go to the next one. You pretty much have to do all of them, but at least they're seated in there and you can get them straight with the little wire. like I said, if you get one that doesn't want to flow real easy, just put a little bit of solder on the base there, just like that, and then it'll transfer that heat a lot better. And seat it completely. Hold it there for a second, let it harden up. Like I said, some of these just don't want to flow again really quickly. I don't want to leave the soldering tip on there for a long time, so just what you got to do is just put a little extra bit of solder on there, and it'll transfer that heat a lot faster. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. Alright, in that little parts bag, there's, you know, some jumper wires, there's a little speaker, the white, I don't know what gauge wire, that's really thin wire, and then there's the little IR receiver, and you know, you can see it goes right there. I got a little piece of solder in there, but it only goes one way, it faces out, so it's pretty simple. And I noticed, you know, the instructions don't tell you how to solder that speaker in, and I'm going to put some power and meter these two things, because one's round. Actually, I guess I should put it in the frame. One's round and one's square, and I can't remember which is supposed to be negative and which is supposed to be positive, so I'm going to put the multimeter on and see if I can find it that way. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, I got to get that solder out of that one little hole there. One more thing that I noticed too on these little header pins, that sometimes I couldn't get the little the LEDs to insert in there, so just take one of these and just kind of open it up by inserting it, and that made it a lot easier. Just basically do that, push it all the way in. Alright, so we need to test to see where the speaker goes as far as the negative and positives. So plug in your power supply. I already put couple pieces of wire on there, so get your multimeter, volt DC, turn the unit on. Yeah, you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to put the black on the square, red on the round, see what we get. This is minus 1.2 millivolt. Then we're going to switch it around, put the red on the square one, put the black on the round one, and now we get positive 1.2. So the square is a positive on this. And as you can see, these are RGBs. Pretty cool. Alright, I wanted to show you guys something else. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I could swear in the instructions it says that all these center pins right here is negative and the outside's positive. Alright, at least that's what I'm reading. Like I said, I could be reading it wrong. But the multimeter there, same thing with just like the speaker. You know, this is how you can test it. And that's 4.4. And I got the negative on the outside. So if we switch, it's minus 4.8. And we can do another little test just to make sure. What did I just do with it? Oh, there it is. I've got a little LED right here. The little flat side is negative, so what we can do just to make sure, we can plug that in, and there you go. So the negative I don't know if the instructions I have are wrong or if I'm just reading it wrong. I don't actually have them right in front of me, but you can see the negative is actually the outside and not the inside pins, because the LED's coming on and it's flashing. It's doing it, you know, if it's doing its little program. So just wanted to put that out there in case you know are doing this board and you have instructions that say that the pins on the inside are negative. It's not. The outside pins, what is there? There's 8 outside pins. You know, you have a double row, and so that means the outside's actually negative. And there you go. Like I said, it's working. So, and I'm glad I did that, because I was going to install them the way my instructions say, which is the opposite of what this is. So, you know, it's another reason to have a nice little meter. I mean, this isn't a very expensive meter. It's, I don't know how you pronounce it, Enning, whatever. It's like 20 bucks, but it's a decent little meter.